Hello, today I will tell you about a case that occurred in the 1990s. In less than an hour, 7 people were brutally murdered, and the motive was simply a search for excitement. According to the killer's confession, he just wanted to do something big, seeking a thrill. Due to the lack of witnesses and clear physical evidence, the investigation once hit a dead end. So, what happened that day? Next, let's go back in time to January 8, 1993. January 8, 1993. It was a Friday. The story takes place in the town of Palatine, Illinois, USA. This place had a very good living environment and security. 2230. Snow was still falling outside, and the Christmas holiday atmosphere hadn't completely faded. The phone at the Palatine police station suddenly rang. The officer on duty thought it was surely someone calling about some trivial matter. However, after answering, the officer heard a panicked voice on the other end. "Officer, my son Michael hasn't come home yet." His workplace closes every day at 2100, and he usually gets home by 2130, but there's still no sign of him. "My son works at Brown's Chicken. I hope you can help investigate." Michael was a student at Palatine High School. He wanted to earn extra pocket money by working part-time at Brown's Chicken in his free time. He usually went straight home after work. If he had plans or was going out, he would notify his family. But today, he hadn't done that. When patrol officers arrived at the restaurant, they found that Brown's Chicken was dark and closed. There were no signs of anything unusual. Therefore, they called back to the station and reported, "Nothing unusual, the shop is closed. Perhaps Michael is just hanging out somewhere." 0100. The phones at the police station rang continuously. Sequential alarm calls reported, "Their family members have lost contact without prior notice." Coincidentally, all of the people mentioned worked at Brown's Chicken. The duty officer realized something was wrong and immediately dispatched 2 more officers to the chicken restaurant to investigate. When police arrived, they found the shop closed and the lights off inside. Looking through the window by the streetlights, they saw the shop was clean and tidy chairs stacked on tables with no unusual signs. So they went to check the back door. One of the 2 officers pushed the door firmly and found it unlocked. They looked at each other, drew their weapons, and entered the shop. It was completely silent inside. When the lights were turned on, what appeared before their eyes made them jump in horror. There was a lot of blood on the floor, no one in sight, and the bloodstains stretched to the doors of the cooler and freezer at the back of the kitchen. They proceeded to open the cooler door on the west side, and 2 bodies appeared before them. In terror, they quickly moved to open the freezer door on the east side. To their horror, inside was a pile of bodies stacked on top of each other. All had been shot. That scene was something the 2 officers would never forget. Initial identification showed that a total of 7 people had been murdered. The cause of death for all was gunshot wounds. Some victims were not only shot multiple times, but also stabbed several times with a knife. The 2 victims in the west cooler were the 50-year-old restaurant owner Richard Ahlenfeld and a 32-year-old employee Thomas Menes. The 5 victims in the east freezer were Lynn Ahlenfeld, the 49-year-old wife of the owner, and Marcus Nelson, 31, a full-time employee. Guadalupe Maldonado, 36, the night shift cook, along with 2 students working part-time, Rico L. Solis, 17, and Michael A. Castro, 16. Due to the gravity of the case, local police quickly teamed up with Chicago detectives, the Illinois State Police, and the FBI to form a 75-person Palatine task force and begin a comprehensive investigation of the case. Investigators examined every detail at the scene, took hundreds of photos, and recorded specific details. They found the following clues at the scene. Investigators discovered a bloody mop, and there were signs of cleaning near the east door of the shop. Therefore, the perpetrator may have used that mop to clean up bloodstains after committing the crime. This also suggests the perpetrator was very calm or very familiar with the restaurant. He knew that no one would come here after the shop closed. Thus, he did not flee in a hurry, but stayed to clean up the scene. At least 20 bullets were found in the roof of the chicken shop and in the victims. The weapon was likely a .38 caliber revolver, but its origin could not be determined. There was an unusual occurrence in the shop. One chair near the ordering counter was placed correctly, while all the other chairs had been overturned onto the tables. Inverting the chairs was done for cleaning convenience. The chair near the counter indicated that despite being past closing time, a customer was still eating in the restaurant. Was that last diner the perpetrator or someone with information? The restaurant's revenue that day was between $1,800 and $1,900. However, the cash register was empty. This suggested the killer's goal might have been robbery. But why did they resort to murdering innocent people? Inside the restaurant's cash register, a receipt was found. The time shown was 21:07 on January 8th, the last transaction of the day. The last customer had ordered a chicken combo, 2 small rolls, a bag of fries, and a drink. The shop had been cleaned. Only one trash can inside contained some chicken bones fries and other trash like tissues that hadn't been emptied. Police were unsure if the trash bag would be valuable in solving the case, but they collected and froze it anyway. After the incident, the Palatine investigation team continuously interviewed nearby residents and investigated all friends and relatives of the victims. They also looked into former employees of the chicken restaurant. Unfortunately, no useful clues were found. The perpetrators seemed to have vanished without a trace. During the investigation, the police also made a mistake. It wasn't until 2 weeks after the incident that they remembered a 24-hour gas station near the crime scene with surveillance cameras. Unfortunately, all the footage from the surveillance cameras had been overwritten. The task force, consisting of hundreds of officers, continued the investigation for an entire year. But they only knew the motive was robbery. All other causes remained completely unclear. Consequently, the case reached a stalemate. Under public pressure and the inability to find a breakthrough in the case, Chicago police thought of a physical evidence analysis expert from Connecticut named Henry Lee. He is a renowned Chinese-American detective nicknamed the contemporary Sherlock Holmes, or the Chinese god of detectives. After accepting the invitation, Henry Lee began his work. On January 28, 1994, 1 year after the incident, Henry Lee was invited to Palatine to join the investigation of the Browns chicken massacre. He meticulously studied a series of case files, physical evidence, and hundreds of crime scene photos to reconstruct the crime. Through the reconstruction, he concluded that the scene was consistent with a robbery-murder case. The trash in the bin perfectly matched the combo meal sold at 21:07 that night. He carefully studied the trash and discovered that the last customer only ate the chicken wings. The rest of the meal was virtually untouched. Thus, it could be confirmed that the person's purpose for coming to the shop was not to eat. After the final order was taken, all 7 employees in the chicken restaurant were murdered. The scene left no significant evidence indicating the killer had prepared very thoroughly before acting. He chose the exact closing time of the shop to commit the crime. Overall, the person who placed the last order was likely the main suspect. According to the final receipt, the order time was 21:07, while the chicken shop's closing time was 2100. In America, there is a strong sense of time. They are very rigid about it. When work hours end, they won't open even if customers arrive. But on that day, despite being past closing time and cleaning being finished, they still took an order, suggesting the customer might be an old acquaintance. The restaurant staff broke the rules, extending their working hours to serve them. Since only the chicken wings were eaten, Henry Lee surmised the killer might be black or Hispanic. America is a multiracial country where each race has its habits. White people usually prefer chicken breast Asians like drumsticks, while black and Hispanic people prefer wings. According to the receipt, the combo only had one wing, but the bones in the trash showed 2 wings. It's very likely the staff gave an extra one. This further proved that the killer was someone they knew. The wing bones had been chewed on at both ends. That area would surely have the suspect's saliva. Henry Lee utilized DNA technology, which was only emerging at the time, to extract DNA from the chicken bones. In 1994, very few people knew about DNA technology. Even the Palatine police where the crime occurred had never heard of it and didn't know what it was. However, because DNA technology wasn't advanced enough, then the tiny amount of saliva extracted from the bones was insufficient for analysis. Therefore, Henry Lee suggested preserving the test samples until the technology improved. Time passed without a breakthrough, until 1998 when DNA technology advanced significantly and police successfully analyzed the suspect's DNA. However, at that time, the United States had not yet established a complete DNA database. Manually comparing DNA was a laborious, time-consuming, and expensive task. By then, it was 5 years after the incident. Ultimately, they found no match for the DNA. With no new evidence, the case became a cold case. March 25, 2002, 9 years after the incident. A girl named Ann Lockett provided the police with a vital clue. According to Ann, her ex-boyfriend James Degorski and a man named Juan Luna were the primary culprits in the Browns' chicken murders. In her testimony, Ann revealed what happened that year. A day after the incident, James called and told her to turn on the TV. The news was reporting 7 people murdered at Brown's Chicken. He seemed very proud and said that was what he had done. Shortly after, James and Juan bragged to her about the details of the case, but she didn't dare report it to the police, because James threatened to kill her if she revealed anything. Every day she lived in fear and didn't dare go to the police. Sometime later, she and James broke up. 9 years after the crime, she confided the whole story to her current boyfriend. Her boyfriend encouraged her to go to the police. Finally, she dared to tell everything. Initially, the police were very skeptical. Since the crime occurred, they had received thousands of clues, but none were useful. However, when Ann described the process of the crime, she mentioned a detail that caught the police's intense focus. It was a detail never released to the public. A bloody mop was used to clean up vomit containing pieces of fries. According to her description, when one victim was shot, he vomited the fries he had eaten. To ensure the person was dead, James used the mop to poke his body. To avoid drawing attention, the police began a secret investigation of the 2 suspects. They discovered that Juan was a former employee of Brown's Chicken and of Hispanic descent. This matched Henry Lee's theory. At the time, Juan avoided suspicion because he had an alibi. Police found Eileen, the person who had provided an alibi for Juan. After being interrogated, Eileen admitted that she had lied to investigators. The truth was, after James and Juan committed the crime, they immediately went to Eileen and paid her $50, asking her to help provide an alibi. Furthermore, Juan's DNA perfectly matched the DNA collected from the chicken bones 4 years prior. On May 16, 2002, the police successfully arrested the 2 suspects. After hours of interrogation, they finally confessed to the crime. When they committed the crime, both were only high school students. They had prior records of drug use, frequently tortured small animals, and were considered troublemakers in the neighborhood. In a 44-minute video confession, Juan described what happened in the chicken restaurant on January 8, 1993. That night, we wanted to do something big to look for a thrill. Because I used to work at Brown's Chicken. I knew the shop always closed at exactly 2100 every day, had no burglar alarm system, and I was very familiar with the store's environment. So we chose that shop to strike. On the evening of January 8, 1993, there was heavy snow. Juan entered the shop at the very last minute before closing time. Sure enough, there were no customers left in the store except for the staff. He ordered a portion of fried chicken. The store employees also knew him. So, not only did they allow him to order after 2100, but they also knew he liked chicken wings. Thus, they gave him an extra piece. Just like that, he sat eating chicken wings, waiting for James to bring the gun. As soon as James walked in, he locked the back door of the shop and put on gloves. And he shot a waiter who was trying to run away after noticing something unusual. After that, he continued using his gun to herd all the employees into the cooler and freezer in the kitchen. What followed was a ruthless massacre. According to Juan's confession, they initially only wanted to steal money with no other intentions. But after encountering resistance, they couldn't control themselves and turned on the entire store. However, this story clearly did not align with the actions at the scene, because they brought a lot of spare ammunition. After the murders, they were sober enough to clean up the scene before taking the store's earnings. That purpose was not simply about stealing money. On May 10, 2007, based on DNA evidence and the testimonies of 2 witnesses, Juan was convicted of 7 counts of murder. However, because one jury member staunchly opposed the death penalty, the death sentence was not passed. Ultimately, he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. On September 29, 2009, based on the testimonies of his ex-girlfriend Anne and his alibi provider Eileen, James was finally convicted of 7 counts of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. From when the 7 victims were murdered in 1993 to when the suspects were arrested in 2002 and then convicted in 2007, the course of the case dragged on for 14 years. During those 14 years, the victims' families had to endure an immense loss. It was something ordinary people could not imagine. At the same time, the case also plunged the town of Palatine into an oppressive atmosphere. After the incident, sales for the Brown's chicken chain dropped by 35%, forcing 100 restaurants in the Chicago area to close. The site of the incident, after remaining vacant for many years, was once converted into a laundromat. But due to business failure, it was eventually demolished in April 2001. Currently, a new Chase Bank has been built on the site. In reality, many cold cases are simply due to the technological limitations of the time, preventing them from being solved immediately. That does not mean they can never be solved. Remember that there is no perfect crime in this world. Today's video ends here, and see you all in the next videos. Goodbye.